I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Hey everyone! We did it! Who knows, it might have been working there for a while, I just couldn't hear it because of that tiny little speaker was there. If I wanted to spend a lot more time, I could have set something up where it would have pulled the video out, the sound, we could have got the sound through the sound system, and it's like, when nobody was in the room and I was testing it out, I could hear it great. But yeah, we still got it, so fantastic. All right, so that's spring break. We're going to leave on Saturday, whatever that day is, and we're probably coming back on Friday, I think. And for us, we're asking the cost of $100, and that covers everything for you for the week. If we have any money left over from that, we will give it to the ministry that we're going to be working with, and just making sure that everybody heard. It's a church plant in inner city Indianapolis, and where several people have moved down there. So it's not just, hey, we come down here once a week and do church on Sunday, but this is where we've relocated our lives. We're going to live missionally. And one of the things that they're doing, the city of Indianapolis gave them almost a blank check to say, they went to the city and said, hey, there's this empty lot. We'd like to, would you let us clean it up? They said, we'll tell you what, if you'll do the work, we'll provide stuff so you can build a park there so kids can hang out and do that, have fun, and we can improve the neighborhood. And so they're like, yes. And that was kind of how we got connected to this. Matt is friends with some of the people who started the church. And then, as you heard from him, there's also going to be a lot of after-school stuff with kids, and a couple of you like kids. I have some kids, I like them. So, it's a great opportunity, In fact, just Monday, a little plug, by the way, we have women's Bible study here at noon, and we have men's Bible study at 8, because just be a man and get up, let's go, right? And we were reading in 2 Timothy chapter 1, and Paul was talking about when Timothy was a young man, when his mother and his grandmother invested God's word in him. And so investing in young people, the word of God, it bears fruit. And I know there are some of you who, somebody was investing Jesus in you from a very, very young age, and that is bearing fruit in your life. So a great opportunity to go and share with your spring break, all right? All right, so tonight, guys, this is going to be the last night in kind of this little series of sort of guiding principles. How do we make decisions? How do we live our lives for Christ? And last week was just the reality that if you want to know God's will, you need to read God's Word. That the vast majority of God's Word is clearly spelled out for you, and if God's Word says do it, you need to pray about that, you just need to do it. If God's Word says don't do it, you don't really need to pray about that either, you just need to don't do it. And so that covers a whole lot of stuff right there. All right, so tonight, I'm going to give you just maybe let me give you a really, really quick story. I'll try to make this quick. And I've heard this story before about a young lady who was, she was watching her mom. In fact, every year they had this Christmas tradition. They would make this big Christmas ham. It was a family tradition that passed down through the generations. And this girl was watching her mom make this big ham like she always did. And she cut the ham in half, and she put one half in one pot, or a pan, sorry. She put another half. There's only one other half, right? It's not another half, it's the other half. She put it in a different pan, and then she baked them in the oven. And she was like, you know, Mom, I noticed that every year that when we do this, you always cut this ham in half, and you bake it in 2 different pans. Why do you do that? And she's like, well, I don't know. That's just how that's how my mom, your grandma, that's how she always did it. And they're like, so let's ask. And so they called her up and said, hey, we're getting ready to make our Christmas ham, and we cut it in half and baked it in 2 different pans. And my daughter was asking why I did that. And I was like, I don't know. I thought I'd call you and ask you. And she's like, well, that's something that my mom always did. And she's like, and she's still alive, let's give her a call. And so she called her mom, and she says, hey, we're all kind of wondering now, because when I was little, from the earliest time, you used to cut the ham in half, and you put it in 2 pans, and that's just kind of how we've always done it. And said, what's the big secret? You know what? I'm guessing that makes it just makes the ham so much better, right? And she says, oh, well, when I did that, I didn't have a pan big enough for the whole ham, so I always had to cut it in half. Isn't that silly? And it's kind of a letdown, right? You're like, oh, really? Why? And so, but the point is, that's a silly story. But the point is, guys, that sometimes we do things that we've seen somebody else do them, and we have no idea why. We don't know the guiding principle. We don't understand the reason that we do those things. And I believe as Christians sometimes there's things that we do just because we saw another Christian do them. We pray a certain way because we heard somebody do that. Or there's maybe some particular habits or things that we do in our lives that we just picked up from somebody else. But we don't really know why. And maybe it was a very pragmatic reason. Maybe there was something very simple. But we need to own the why. We need to know the why. And so this is what I want to get into with you guys tonight. Why do we do the things that we do? And so here's some principles that I want to give to you. Because I think if you understand the why, it's a whole lot easier to get to the what. If you knew the only reason great-grandma cut the ham in half was because it wouldn't fit, we just blow past that step, right? We don't do that anymore. We kind of learn from that. So tonight we're going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And it's the last part of chapter 10. And I know it's weird in a way because we're going to be jumping right far into this letter. And so there's not a lot of context. I'm going to give you some context. Let me read this first, and then I'll give you some background. So Paul writes, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible, but not everything is constructive. Nobody should seek his own good, but the good of others. Now eat anything sold in the meat market without raising questions of conscience, for the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. If some unbeliever invites you to a meal and you want to go, eat whatever is put before you without raising questions of conscience. But if anyone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then do not eat it, both for the sake of the man who told you and for conscience sake. The other man's conscience, not yours. For why should my freedom be judged by another's conscience? If I take part in the meal of thankfulness, why am I denounced because of something I thank God for? So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Do not cause anyone to stumble, whether Jews, Greeks, or the church of God, even as I try to please everybody in every way. For I'm not seeking my own good, but the good of many, so that they may be saved. Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. There may be one or two, you're like, what on earth is going on in this passage? Okay, now, it's really important in any time when you're reading the scriptures, it's just a coincidence, Ethan, that I'm going to share this as well. But anytime you're reading the scriptures, you need to understand the context. You need to understand what is going on. Sometimes we approach the Bible and we ask the question, this is one of the, and I've done this. I used to do this, okay? So this is a question you want to scratch out of your vocabulary. But sometimes at Bible study, somebody might say, what does this passage mean to you? That's bad. Don't ever say that, okay? Because you're not the source of meaning. You're not the source of truth. It's not what does it mean to you. It's just what does it mean. All right? There was something very specific that Paul meant when he wrote this. And so if you really want to accurately apply God's word to your life, you have to do the hard work of actually understanding the text. And boy, a lot of verses just get ripped out of context, or, well, I don't know, I just kind of think it means this, or me. Well, this is what it means to me. If it means something else to you, that's nice. That's postmodernism. That's not how the scripture works. It means something, and so a big part of Bible study is trying to get to the meaning. Once you understand what it means, then you can apply it to your life. You get the principles, and that's what we're going to look at tonight. We're going to get the principles out of this. So what's going on here? What is the context? Because this makes total sense if you know what's going on. So here's what's going on. This church, the church at Corinth, was a church that was just riddled with problems. There was so much, and it wasn't that, it was just a few years ago. Maybe Matt was on staff when we preached through 1 Corinthians. I think that maybe he was. And so we've been through this not too long ago, some of us had. But it's a church that had so many problems, and at one point they wrote a letter to Paul and just said, hey, we got questions. We don't know, we have some disagreements, we need somebody to settle some things. And so that's why when you get to, I believe it's 1 Corinthians 7, Paul says, now, about the things you wrote to me about. He starts out with something else. He starts out with division, and he's like, you guys stop it. You're so divided. There's so much division in your church. Cut it out. Cut it out. Okay? But we get into some of the questions that they had. And one of the questions that they had was concerning meat. Now, I mean, I know a little bit. Like, I wasn't there, right? Meat. It's just good, okay? Most of us, and it's okay if you're not, I'm not trying to attack anybody, but most of us are fans of meat. All right, meat was a little bit less common in someone's diet at that day than it was today. Most of us probably eat meat every single day. All right? I don't know that they did that every single day, but when they wanted to get meat, they'd have to go down to the market and get it, and so that when they would go to the market and buy it, what would happen was, this is not necessarily a pagan temple that was in Corinth, but this is just kind of a stereotypical pagan temple. What would happen was, remember last week we talked about being a living sacrifice, okay? Right?
Yeah.
Some of you guys were here for that, okay? Well, again, that language was very well known to these people, to the people of Paul's day, because there were pagan sacrifices all over, and the Jews practiced their sacrifices as well. And so what would happen was, in the pagan world, when the animal was sacrificed, the the meat would be processed and it would be sold in the market. And so what happened was, you had these people becoming Christians, and they were aware of this whole process, and they're like, hey, that meat was sacrificed to an idol. Should I eat it or should I not eat it? Okay, I never go to Walmart, look at the packages to see, oh, no, that was from the idol, that's from the pagan temple, I won't buy that package, I'm only going to get the fresh, free-range, what are all the GMO, I don't know what all phrases are, can't think of them right now, all organic, right? There's one of those words, right? Well, in that day, that was a real concern for them. And so some of the things that Paul told them, he said, look guys, an idol is nothing. We know that there's only one God. And so all these idols, they're really nothing, so don't worry about that, okay? But some people still couldn't get past that. And so Paul said to them, look, if this is a big deal to you, then don't eat it. If it's not a big deal to you, then go ahead and eat it. And we really get introduced to this idea of these issues of conscience. And there are a lot of black and white, very cut and dry issues with sin. But then there's the issue of personal conscience. And sometimes there's something that's not wrong, but for some reason, you've decided it's wrong. It's wrong for you. I have a close family member who has decided he'll never watch an R-rated movie. Okay? And so that's fine. For him to go against that would be sin, because he really feels like God has convicted him not to do that. I'm not saying all of you have to have that personal conviction, okay? He didn't watch The Passion of the Christ because it was rated R. That's fine. That was his personal conviction, okay? So Paul's saying you can have these convictions, but then they're like, okay, well, what about if, well, what about if I go, so it's okay for me to eat. So what if I eat it, can I eat it at the temple? At the pagan temple, Paul says, no, don't ever do that. Maybe I'll give you too much background, but I want you guys to understand this passage, okay? So he says, don't ever eat it at the pagan temple, because even though an idol is nothing, okay, there's no false God, there's no real God there, he says, and nevertheless, when people worship idols, demons mislead people through that. And so in the end of the day, idolatry is demonic, okay? And so he says, don't participate in the table of demons. I'm just giving you some of what else is in 1 Corinthians here, that he says to them about this, okay? So then, they're like, well, what about if I go to a non-believer's house? Should I eat there or should I not eat there? And so this is where we are, all right? He says, look, if you go to a non-believer's house, eat whatever they put in front of you. But if they tell you this was sacrificed to an idol, don't do it, okay? And I'm going to come back to this later. What he's saying in essence is, they think that it's probably wrong for you to eat it. And if they think it would be wrong for you to eat it, don't do it. Because if you do it, you're going to be a bad witness to them. Okay? All right. So that's the context of what's going on in here. All right? And that's where Paul says don't violate their conscience by doing something that they are pretty sure Christians shouldn't do. And we're going to come back to that here in a little bit. All right? So everybody's really excited. You're all with me. Let's do this. All right. We good? We good? We'll try to give you some context in 1 Corinthians. Okay. So we get into this passage, and this is really what I want to challenge you guys with, because again, for me, what I want to share with you is I want to give you some principles, because a lot of times we just tell me what to do. I just want to know what to do, and so we just throw in the two hands and the separate pans, and we have no idea why we do that, and it's not even a good idea. We shouldn't be doing that. And so as Christians, sometimes we ask the wrong questions, and we do things for the wrong reasons. And so tonight, I want to give you some different lenses, some different things to look at. And one of the things that we ask as Christians is it okay for me to do this? Is it okay for me to do that? Is it okay for me to go there? Is it okay for me to participate in this activity? And I told you guys before that growing up as a young Christian, in my early, probably my teens, growing up in church, all I really knew about being a Christian was don't do bad stuff. Don't sin. That was all I got. I didn't know how to positively follow Jesus. I was just trying not to break anything. Okay? And so that was a real natural question because I didn't want to do what was wrong. So I was just like, well, can I do that? Can I do that? Can I do that? But it really leads to the wrong question where we're asking, is this okay? Can I get away? And sometimes we ask that too. I remember also when I was a teenager in dating relationships being like, well, how far is too far? Right? Some of you have asked that question before. Maybe you've discussed it, you've debated it. How far is too far? What we really mean when we ask that question is, I want to know where the line is. I feel like it wasn't that long ago. Maybe I preached on this at some point last year. But I want to know this in Galatians, maybe. But I'm like, I want to know where the line is because I want to get as close to the line as I can without stepping over it. As if, like, man, sin is so good. I know I can't have it, but can I get real close? Like, can I just be like, and smell it? It's like Jimmy John's or something. It's your free smell, right? I know, that's the slogan. Free smells. Some people don't like the free smells, I guess. That's fair. But you shouldn't like that either. So if you don't like the free smells, it's a great example because don't try to get as close as you can. Is this okay is not a good question to ask. Am I allowed to do this? And because there are people who are flaunting this phrase, and this shows up also back, was at the end of chapter 6 maybe, where it seems that this is one of the things that the Corinthians said to Paul. Well, everything's permissible. I'm free in Christ. Everything has been made clean. I can do whatever I want. Everything is okay. Everything is permissible. And so I think that a lot of your translations will have that in quotes because that's the understanding is that Paul's not saying everything is permissible. Paul is just saying, whether it is or not, he's saying, listen, let's try these questions instead. Instead of asking, is it okay? Is it permissible? Am I allowed to do this? Ask this question. Is it beneficial? Ooh. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. That's a very different question. Is this good for me? Oh, man. Because there's a whole lot of stuff. You already know the answer to that question. You're like, hey, would Jesus be mad at me if I spent the whole weekend playing video games? Is that okay? Well, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Is it beneficial? Shut up, man. I know it's not beneficial. There's a lot of things. Like, hey, like I'm going to go through a quick list. Like, is watching Netflix okay? Well, that depends. Is it okay? I'm sorry. Is it okay? It's okay, but is it beneficial? Well, that depends. It might be beneficial. It might not be. Playing video games, is that okay? It's okay, but is it beneficial? Well, that depends. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Is eating out at a restaurant okay? Of course it's okay. Is it beneficial? Is it a good idea? Well, maybe not. Maybe you can't afford to go out. Maybe you're going to go and pig out at the all-you-can-eat bar and you probably shouldn't do that. Maybe not. Is it okay to buy a new car? Sure it is. Is that a good idea? Maybe not. All right? On and on. Is buying a big house. I'm going to buy the biggest, best house that I can buy. Is that okay? It's okay. Is it beneficial? Is it a good idea? I don't know. That's a different question. And too often, I think, guys, we're trying to ask, is it okay? Is God going to be mad at me? Can I get away with this? Instead of asking, is this a good thing? Is this beneficial? Is this something that I should do? And there are plenty of things that we spend our time and our energy and our resources on that we already know the answer to that question. It's no. And so I can just do you a favor and just say, you know what? You know what needs to happen to those things, right? They need to go. If it's not beneficial, why are we spending our time on that? The second question that Paul gives us, the second idea, he says everything is permissible, but not everything is constructive. Whether you can do it or not everything will build people up. Does not build people up in Christ. It's not going to encourage people, it's not going to strengthen people. And so there's a big difference between what is okay and what is constructive. And so I can come back to that same list. Is it okay to watch Netflix? Yeah, it's okay. Depending on what you're watching. There's some things that you already know. No, it's not okay. I shouldn't be watching that. But hey, how can it be beneficial? How can it be constructive for me to watch something? Well, maybe I'm watching it with someone else. Maybe we're building a relationship. Maybe I'm doing some research so I can better know how to connect with somebody. That could be constructive. I can see that. Going out to eat in a restaurant. How could that be constructive? Well, maybe I took somebody with me. Maybe I'm serving them. Maybe I'm going to pay for their meal. Maybe while we're there, we're going to have a spiritual conversation. Maybe we went there not only to have a meal, but to make sure that we were actually a blessing to the waitstaff. That would be a good idea. That could be constructive. And so there are things that we do. So sometimes, this is weird, right? Because we just want to know, like, so often, like, just tell me yes or no. Would it be okay? Can I go to the restaurant or not? Like, well, maybe it's a yes and maybe it's a no. Are you going to go and be a benefit? Are you going to go and build someone up? Then it's probably a good idea. Are you going to go and be selfish? Or are you going to go and spend money you don't have? Then you shouldn't do that. So it's not a simple cut and dried answer on these things, guys. And so we ask the question, is it okay? Well, what we ought to be asking is either, is it beneficial and is it constructive? Those are two questions that I wanted to challenge you with tonight. I find these to be very helpful. And a lot of times these questions challenge my motives because it's been a little while since I have bought a new softball bat. I still very much enjoy playing slow pitch softball. I'm concerned that someday some of my best softball buddies are going to move away and I'm going to be sad. All right, I've experienced that many times. But a good softball bat, you can go to Walmart and buy a bat, and don't bring that weak stuff to the field. Okay, you can go buy yourself like a $30 softball bat. And you're going to be lucky to hit it out of the infield. That's fine. You can use that bat. But Andrew and I, we're going to be dropping bombs. All right? But to do that, we're going to spend $200 or $300 on a bat. And some of you guys are like, oh, thank you, Courtney. I was hoping. You're like, what? Right. And I want to ask you how much you spent on your favorite hobbies. Okay? You know, how much was that sewing machine? How much was the Cricut device? Or whatever. Whatever. But here's the thing, guys. This was what really, for me, personally, was really helpful. Is when I went to buy that bat, I had to ask myself, why am I getting this? Is this just going to be, because I've played with people before who had really, really nice softball bats, and they get more expensive, who they went to their bag, and they took their bat out, and they went and hit, and then they went back and put it back in their bag and zipped it up, you know, and it was like, remember last week, that bat was like, holy. That bat was set apart for them, okay? I was like, Lord, here's the deal. I'm going to spend this money, and then it's the team bat. Like, anybody can use it. And other people are hitting bombs. It's fun. And I cheer a lot, you know. I get excited for those guys. Okay? So is this going to be beneficial to other people? It is. And so I think that's a heart check sometimes when we want to do something. Well, why are you going to do this? How are you going to be a blessing to other people? Or are you just doing it for yourself? Because even playing a video game, I can play a video game for selfish reasons, or I can play a video game for spiritual reasons. I still remember, I probably won't soon forget this, and this was years ago, whenever I talked to somebody in a church like this, like a Bible study, and I mentioned softball being a ministry. And they had the same look you had when I told you how much the bat cost. They were like, softball can't be ministry. You know, that's just a game. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm building relationships with these guys. We're getting to know one another. These are guys that I've had opportunities to pray with, to share Christ with. Of course it's a ministry. And so you can do these things for the Lord. You can do that with video games, but that's often not what's happening. You know, but you can use it as a platform to build relationships, and that goes on to anything that you love to do, which I think is really cool. God's given us all different interests and abilities and talents, and they can all be used to connect with people, because I'll give you a newsflash. The people who don't know Jesus, you don't have Jesus in common with them. Well, what do you have in common with them? Your abilities, your talents, the things that you like, that they like, your shared interests. So man, use it to the glory of God. So it can be beneficial. It can be helpful if you use it that way. That's the first one. The second thing I see in this passage, that Paul says, I think we need to be a little bit more aware of what we're doing and not to be an obstacle or a stumbling block. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up. This can become overhyped, overplayed, really murky. I've heard everything under the sun. I've heard people guilted for almost anything that they've ever done. You're going to make somebody stumble. You know, and look, I get it. You know, somebody's like, hey, I don't know if I should shop at Walmart, because some people don't like Walmart. Some people think, you know, Walmart's an evil corporation, so if I shop there, I might cause somebody to stumble. You know, we're going to take our family vacation to the beach, but I don't know if I should put any pictures online, because somebody sees it, they might be jealous, and that might cause them to stumble. So I better not put any pictures online. But you can get paralyzed. You know, I'm running late for church today, and I don't have time to put on my Sunday best, or maybe I didn't wash my Sunday best, so I'm just going to throw on these clothes. And somebody's probably going to look at me and think, oh, you can't come to church like that. I'm going to cause somebody to stumble. I better not dress like this. Okay. I get it. I get that sometimes that is blown out of proportion. It's used to make anything that I don't like, I can say, oh, I can't believe you're drinking water out of a water bottle. Don't do that. It's going to cause somebody to stumble. Like, okay, let's just stop for a second. Let's all take a deep breath. It's going to be okay, right? I know that it gets silly at times, but this principle is still very important. And just because it's been abused or misunderstood, we should still work to understand this correctly. Because in Paul's day, like I said, eating meat was a big deal. Now, I don't know anybody who worries, like you don't go to Jack Stack and wonder if the burnt ends or the ribs, or what do you get at Jack Stack, Andrew?
Ribs.
The ribs, okay. Were these was this animal sacrificed to an idol before it made it to my plate? Like, you don't think about that. But this was a known, real issue in Paul's day, all right? And it was something that Christians disagreed upon. But some people were real serious, thinking, man, that can't be right. And so Paul says, you know what? And this is how much Paul loved Jesus, okay? He says, if eating meat will cause my brother to stumble, I will never eat meat again. I know some people, that's the craziest thing in the Bible. I can't believe that he said that. All right, not eat meat. But here's the deal. Some people were genuinely convinced that it was sinful, and other people just didn't care. Like, I don't care whether this bothers you or not. I don't care if this is a real big deal for you or not. And that's part of what was going on in this church at Corinth, is they didn't care. Like, I'm going to look at, it's okay for me, so I don't care what you think. Get out of here. So it still matters, and it's still a deal. And so I threw some things up here that I think some of them are known issues, some of them are debatable issues, some of them I think are just personal things where I think we need to be aware. So I put like drinking and smoking and cussing and some of those kind of things that generally speaking, look, okay, hold on. Every single person who's on leadership here knows I've given you the spiel that I don't believe drinking is a sin, okay? It's not. But I do think drinking is unwise, especially when you're in Maryville, Missouri, in a college context. And 90% at least of the drinking in Maryville leads to sin. And so, hey, all of our leaders have just said, I'm not going to do that. Because you know what bad thing happens to you if you don't drink? Oh, that's right, nothing. You know what bad thing happens to you if you just don't drop 4-letter bombs and the F-bomb and all the other words you shouldn't say? You know what bad thing happens to you? Oh, that's right, nothing. Nothing bad happens if you don't do that. And so these are some things that I think in our culture that people recognize, they're kind of vices, they're not really good things. And I remember, this fascinates me. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit because now it's not on my screen. But Paul says, it's really interesting, Paul says, you know, if the unbeliever offers you meat, and then he says, by the way, I know you're a Christian, this was sacrificed to an idol. Then he says, don't eat it. He says, this is why you don't eat it. He says, because that non-believer, he knows that a lot of Christians don't eat this. And so if you eat it, now he's confused. Now he's like, well, I don't know what Christians do. All right? I thought I understood they had kind of this higher standard of living than I do. And I guess they don't follow that higher standard of living. And it's fascinating to me, guys. It's been a little while, but I still, again, another story I probably won't forget. You know what I'm going to say, Karen. We had 2 students that we knew, and one of them, she had been one of our student leaders, and she was very committed to this no alcohol policy. And they both worked, they're both Christians, they both love Jesus. They took different stances on alcohol. One of them was like, you know, it's not a sin, I'm going to do that, that helps me connect with non-believers. And the other was like, you know what, I'm just not going to do that, I'll find other ways to connect with non-believers. They were both grad students, and they worked in the same office. And one day, and there's a he and a she. So the he was the guy who was like, it's not a big deal. She was the one who was like, no, I'm going to do that. And one day, all of the, he was gone. And the employees, they said to her, they said, we know that you're both Christians, but honestly, we just have a lot more respect for you because we know that you don't drink. And they said, if we ever have any questions, we want to talk to you. And in fact, Later, they did. They invited her out to dinner with them. They all went to Applebee's together, and she got to share Christ with them. And I'm not here to throw rocks at people who drink. What I'm saying is, it was really interesting to me that that group of non-Christians had an expectation for Christians. And they were surprised at the Christian who didn't live that way. And so, I'm just curious, do you, because here's the deal, I think whatever the standard that non-believers think that Christians should live to, I think Jesus' standard is higher. Like, are you even living to this standard? Are the non-believers around you, are they surprised at the way that you live your life? Because they know that you love Jesus, they know you claim to follow Jesus, and they're like, well, man, I know you claim to follow being a Christian, but then you don't live like it. And that's what was going on here. Paul's like, hey man, make sure that you at least live up to their standard, because God's standard is so much higher for you anyway. And I think, man, if you're living to God's standard, you're going to be good to go. But he says, you will become an obstacle to them. You will get in the way of them coming to Jesus. And boy, you don't have to look very far in our world today. I mean, into our politics, into certain religious leaders who make big statements and make political statements, and it leaves some of the rest of us scratching our heads, and we're like, man, we're trying to share Jesus, and you're making the rest of us look bad. You're making the rest of us look like this is what Christians are all about. We're all about political power and getting our way. We're not about loving people and sharing the gospel. And so that's out there, and I'm trying not to be too political or make too many comments on that, guys, but out there, maybe you're aware, maybe you're on Twitter and stuff like that, and you know who I'm talking about, or you've got your own people. But here's the thing, forget them. Forget them. What about you? Are you an obstacle to the non-believers around you? Because some Christians are. Sometimes there's we can have the reputation of being hypocrites because it's true. Because we don't practice what we preach. And I'm not saying you're going to be a perfect Christian. There is no such thing. All right? Well, we don't always live up to or try to live up to that standard that we have for other people and what we ought to be living up to. And so, and a newsflash, hey, this is a great opportunity because, even when you blow it as a Christian, we have God's grace, right? And so God doesn't hold our mistakes against us. And so this is a really awesome thing. If you've blown it, if you realize that, maybe you've been at your work and you've just been lazy. You've just been a bum. And for whatever reason, your boss hasn't fired you yet, but you're just a lazy bum and you need to be fired. The next time you go to work, here's what you got to do. You got to go apologize. Just say to your boss, I'm sorry. I'm a follower of Jesus, and it is not right it is not honoring to Jesus for me to work like this. And I'm sorry, and I apologize, and I'm going to do better. That would be cool. Like, man, that may not make you look good, but that gives glory to God. And wow. Again, that paints the picture, that the reality that we don't always get it right, but when we do, at least we'll own our mistakes. So that would be pretty cool. Okay, so don't be an obstacle. The second thing I was talking about, I kind of jumped around it, it's fine, is being a stumbling block. And so, there are some things that maybe you shouldn't do that somebody else is okay with. Or maybe there's some things that other people shouldn't do that you're okay with, okay? And I know this requires some discernment, this requires really some wisdom, but the music that you listen to, the movies that you watch, the TV shows, hey, there are some shows like, I just don't really see why Christians should watch a show like Game of Thrones. That I know, I've never seen it, but I'm aware that there's lots of nudity in that show. Sorry, I just don't understand how that's beneficial. How is it edifying? But let's pretend for a second that somehow you've got like this, and I don't even know what else is in it. I don't know if the violence is really gory and gratuitous or what else, but you don't need to be looking at naked people, all right? They're not your spouse. God's real clear about that. So let's say for a second that somehow maybe there's a sensor on your TV, or you just knew, and every single time that there was something about to be on the screen, you just, and never once, you're like, no, I've got my Game of Thrones filter, I never see that stuff. Okay, that's fine. But here's the deal. You know what? When you go talking about that, you're inviting everybody else to watch it too. And they don't have that filter, unless you're selling that. I don't think that exists. So Paul says, hey man, if I know that what I'm doing is really a big deal and it really is going to cause someone to to fall into sin, then I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. That's a pretty incredible mindset, because we're going to seek the good of others, not the good of ourselves. And I'll tell you guys something else. There's a lot of issues. I got lots of opinions. Trust me. And I think Karen has even more opinions than I do. You know? It's okay. It's okay. But I'm going to give you a little, hey, lots of good stuff tonight, I hope. I think it's good. Let me give you just a thought here. You don't have to share all your opinions online. Okay? You don't have to share everything that you think about every controversial topic. And I find this to be really interesting because there's a companion passage to this. If you want to read Romans 14, because this church at Corinth is not the only church that Paul wrote to about this topic. But in Romans 14, Paul says to them, and he's still talking about meat, but he says, whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Blessed is the man who does not condemn himself by what he approves. And I just think, you know what? Sometimes just keep it to yourself. At the very least, if you've got your Game of Thrones filter and you somehow can watch that and never sin, that's fine. Keep it to yourself. You don't have to spread that around. And I have seen some really interesting things on Facebook that turn into giant debates where somebody's like, oh, you guys should do this. And somebody's like, hey, that's not good. Well, I have a clear conscience. Like, well, you might have a clear conscience, but obviously all these other people don't. So why don't you just keep it to yourself? That's really hard, because that's what social media is all about, right? I get to shout me. You don't have to do that. Right? You don't have to do that. I post so little on Facebook and Twitter because of that, honestly. There's so many things that I was like, I should probably just keep that to myself. And maybe I'm not bold enough at times. That's fair. But anyway, let me give you one more thing here in this passage. And this is such a great guiding principle. Every one of you ought to memorize 1 Corinthians 10:31. Paul says, so whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. Now, straight up, there's some things that you cannot do to the glory of God. You cannot sin to the glory of God. All right? It's real simple. You shouldn't be doing that. But many things can be done to the glory of God. And I think they're done that way when we use them as a ministry platform. We use them to serve other people. We use them to do good. Like I said, can you play softball for selfish reasons? You can. Can you play softball to the glory of God? You can. I mean, we watch athletes, and it's just an easy thing to pick. You can be a CEO to the glory of God. You can be a barista to Starbucks to the glory of God. But we see athletes, right? Sometimes they'll win. And then what do? They get to share for about 3 seconds before the camera goes away because they start talking about Jesus. Or they get on CNN and they start talking about Jesus and the camera cuts to commercial. Because they're like, I'm going to do this to the glory of God. You can do anything but sin. You can do it to the glory of God. So Paul says your eating should be the glory of God. Your drinking should be the glory of God. Why is that? Well, how do you eat to the glory of God? Well, one of the things he says in here, he says, I give thanks. When I eat, I give thanks to God because everything is from God. He's given me all these blessings. And so how do I eat to the glory of God? I give thanks to God. But I want to give you here a real simple principle that we follow the example of Jesus. This is how we do everything to the glory of God. Mark 10:45, Jesus says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many. After washing his disciples' feet in John 13, Jesus said this. He says, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. So I didn't read John 15:8. John 15:8 says, this is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. That when we are following Christ and we bear the fruit of a follower of Christ, when we look like Jesus, that glorifies God. And the last verse up there, Philippians 2:3-5, where Paul says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each one of you should look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And he says your attitude should be the same as Christ Jesus. And then he goes into this high Christological passage where he talks about how he's in very nature God, but he made himself nothing, and just the humility of Christ. And so how do I do everything to the glory of God? I serve others. I love others. I make everything that I do be about that. It's not for me. And he says that here. He says in verse 24, nobody should seek his own good, but the good of others. In verse 33, he says, I try to please everybody in every way. And that's not that Paul's a people pleaser, but Paul's like elsewhere. He says, I become all things to all men, that by all means I might save some. He says, my goal is that people would know Jesus. Right? He says, I'm not seeking my own good, but the good of many, so that they may be saved. So Paul says, the reason I make sure I'm not an obstacle to a non-believer is because I want them to know Jesus. So the reason I'm not stumbling a brother or sister in Christ is because I want them to grow in Jesus, because that's far more important than me getting my way. And I get it. Like, there's probably not a lot of people who are thinking about you and your good. Guess what? Like just let it go. It's actually a glorious thing to be set free from selfishness, from those chains of having to get your own way. And instead, go the way of Christ. Do everything to the glory of God. So tonight, as I wrap up, guys, rather than asking, is this okay? Ask, is this helpful? Is this good? Is this beneficial? Is it constructive? And as we make decisions and we live out our faith, let's be sure that we're not causing anyone to stumble. We're not causing them to sin, because we are leading them to do the very thing that they're convinced they ought not to do. And let's make sure that we're not putting obstacles in the paths of non-believers. Like, these are very different questions than just asking, is this okay or not? And then the last thing, am I doing this to the glory of God? Man, can I go to Snow Creek and snow ski to the glory of God? Well, if you can't, you shouldn't do it. I think there's probably a way that you can. I think you can go with a heart of gratitude. I think you can maybe there's somebody who wants to go and they can't afford to go, so you pay for it. That would be to the glory of God. That'd be pretty cool. I think there's a lot of things we can do to honor the Lord if we live intentionally, if we make that our goal, if we live out these principles. So I'm going to just pray for you guys. The worship team's going to come and lead us in a song, and maybe you need a time of reflection. Maybe you need to pray yourself, pray for someone. If you have any questions, if there's something that was confusing about this tonight, or you just want to know more about following Christ, maybe you've never yet made that commitment, like, I would love to talk with you. I'll be in the back for the rest of the night until most everybody clears out of here. So whatever you need to do, I'd love to talk. You just need to do business with God. Let's pray. Lord God, you're good. I thank you for your word. I thank you, God, that it is a lamp to our feet and a light to our paths. I thank you that, God, your word is so, in a good way, it's so convicting. It steps on my toes all the time. Why are you doing that? Is that beneficial? Is that going to build somebody up? Is that good? Is that going to cause someone to stumble? Is that going to get in the way of somebody knowing Jesus? And ultimately, is this going to glorify me? And so, God, I pray that you would bring things to our minds right now, things that we could do to your glory if we were somehow redirected in that, and that we would do that to your glory. God, I pray you bring to our minds things that we could never do to your glory that need to go, and give us the strength to put that to death. And I pray, God, we continue to be a community where when we do screw up, we own it, we confess it, we make it right, all to your glory, Jesus. We pray in your holy name. Amen.